Okay, terrific. All right, I'm going to bring this meeting to order then. I'm going to ask for everybody to stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark Gordon, would you mind leading us to the pledge, please?
Allegiance before the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and if you could please remain standing for a moment. We are going to keep in mind our first responders, WeGo, and the folks over in Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me make a point here. The last meeting, we took a moment of silence for the folks in the Ukraine. And at that point, they started winning.
That's a good, that's very optimistic. There we go. Very
The
optimistic.
power of positive thinking.
That's right.
Yeah.
And David Shuey is joining us via Zoom. Thank you for coming, David.
From
I am-
Knoxville, Tennessee.
I am on, and I figured I'd come in and Zoom to experience how our residents experience township meetings. So
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So the public is asked in the Zoom forum, asked to remain muted during the meeting when the board is talking. If you do not wish to be seen on the boardroom TV or on the recording, please make sure your camera is turned off via Zoom. In-public participants will be given first opportunity to comment and ask questions on each agenda item that requires a board vote. The Zoom public participants will be given second opportunity to comment and ask questions on each agenda item that requires a board vote. Zoom participants wishing to comment must raise their hand icon, state their name, and speak one at a time. This meeting is being recorded via Zoom, and the recording will be uploaded later to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. Under the chairman's report, a reminder that the Chester County Solid Waste Authority's next household hazardous waste collection will be this Saturday, 4/9 in Phoenixville. You do have to register online. The board met in executive session tonight prior to this meeting to discuss personnel and legal matters. As for public hearings, there are none. Just a note to our Zoom participants, all of the information is found online in a PDF format. Please consider downloading it to follow along at home with the paperwork that we have in person. As far as emergency reports, there are none. Financial report, there is none. So we can move right to the approval of minutes and treasurer's reports. So as far as the minutes are concerned for March the 1st and March the 15th, 2022. Does anybody on the board have any corrections or additions? I didn't see any myself. But they're
No.
great, thank you.
Yep.
So
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes of Tuesday, March 1, 2022, and Tuesday, March 15, 2022.
thanks, John.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Cody. And since there are no questions or corrections, David, did you have any questions or corrections regarding the minutes for the
I
past two
have none.
meetings?
I have none.
Thank you. Are there any public participants who had a question or concern, correction? Are there any Zoom participants who had questions or concerns or? No. Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of passing the minutes into record? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anybody opposed? No. Thank you. Oh, I see David there. You're at the top. Gotcha. Just, I don't have my glasses on, so you're small.
That's the first
Okay.
person that ever said I was small. Thank you.
Maybe I should have said you were short. So, the treasurer's report. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the period March 10th through March 30th. General fund revenue of this period was driven by our real estate tax payments received from the county. We had earned income tax payments, building permits, and park and recreation fees. Our expenses included vehicle maintenance, equipment rental, interim audit fees, traffic light maintenance, legal fees, paving materials, tree removal, refund to Bellingham for taxes based on a court order tax adjustment. We had a capital reserve fund, incurred $4,000 worth of expenses to the LED signs at East Goshen Park and the intersection of Boot Road and Paoli Pike by the Township building. We had another $4,000 that will be spent once that's complete. Another $50,000 was paid to Total Site Development for work done on the Hershey's Mill Dam. So that's progressing. We're hoping in early spring that that's going to be complete with all the plantings and the boardwalk. State Liquid Fuels Fund, we finally got our money. We received $513,000 from the state to assist with our road paving and maintenance operations. And the bond fund incurred about $2,000 in expenses for the Paoli Pike Trail alternate route analysis and an NPDES permit from 2021, which we will cancel moving forward as that section of the trail is now complete. Any questions on any expenses?
Yeah, just one quick question. For the 513,000 we received, is that what you were anticipating that we would get?
I was just gonna,
It's a little more. Yeah, we
Okay.
actually
oh, very good.
anticipating about 498.
Okay, yeah, it is better. Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna ask, Cody, what the status compared to last year, or what we at least budget. Good.
Dave, can you give us an accounting of the Paoli Pike Trail expenses up to this point, please? How much we've gotten in grants, how much we've put out, how much we've put out this month?
Yes, so even though we had more grant dollars than we actually spent, we spent $3,071,750 in grant money. We spent $2,176,369 in bond money for the 2017 general funds bond. And we have spent $233,374 of our capital funds, capital reserve.
How much did the capital reserve? I'm sorry.
233,374. So the total we've spent to date is $5,481,493.
5 million. What was it?
481. 493.
And it's interesting to know the percentages too of the respective components. The grant, very substantial component. The bond fund, still taxpayer dollars clearly, but it's a separate pot and then coming from capital. So it's an interesting breakout.
Yeah, 44% was
Grant
out of pocket.
or out of
which is
pocket.
Total bond and cap. So 56% of the trail to date has been funded by grant money.
That's good. All right, good. Thanks for sharing that, Dave.
Certainly.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
The negative part is that we are $40,000 over the original allocation of the bond money for the trail. Fortunately, we have made enough interest that that
Covered it?
covers it.
Yeah, very good. Not anymore. Interest? What's that?
Interest is going up.
They're coming back.
Well, true, it is going up.
They are coming back. I'm looking at.
Dave, can I ask one question, please?
Yes, sir.
Batch 106, page 1, 3 paragraphs down, $11,195. What are we doing there? It says ARHC.
That's Bellingham. That's Bellingham tax adjustment. We had to pay them back taxes from 2021 that they got reassessed.
Okay.
So that was court ordered.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, you and I had spoken this afternoon about the Liberty Elevator Company.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that my colleagues are aware of the situation. So can you fill us in on what's going on with Liberty and why we're getting so many bills from them, please?
Yeah. Let me pull it up.
Thank you. David, do you have any questions for Dave in the meantime?
I don't.
So I actually said the wrong name before. It's Excel
Sorry.
Elevator and Escalator. So it used to be a $44 monthly bill. Now this is a required maintenance on our elevator because we have an elevator in the building.
For a license.
Yes, and so we have them come in for preventative maintenance monthly. We're not sure 100% what they do. Mark Miller is gonna find out what time they come next and shadow them to see exactly why we're paying exactly this amount. And it was $44. Now that we are into They started adding a COVID supply chain processing fee of $25. So $44 now went up to $69. So we'd like to see what they actually do. And we got hit with all of these bills from 2021 and this year all at the same time. I'm not sure yet if that was a postal service thing, an error on their bookkeeping part, but that's when it first came to my attention.
Okay. I'd like us to look into that a little bit because I think that we need to put them on notice at this point that we're gonna have to look at other services, because if they're gonna start adding COVID charges for supply chain issues, I wanna know if there's anybody out there who's not going to
Yeah,
kind of
Yeah, apparently
rake
there's
us over
not
the coals like that.
a ton of places that do this, but we will exhaust the possibility.
and Madam Chair, that to your point, if they were gonna have these charges, supply chain,
Mhm.
and we've heard, everybody knows about supply chains now. We know, but we don't know what, but yeah. And then these other bills that came in late, why wasn't there an email or a
Right.
letter of communication say, oh, by the way, or somebody at least proactively call and say, you're gonna get these? Nothing.
Right, nothing.
mean,
Well,
that's-
it's an interesting point because when
Yeah.
we don't pay something, I hear from people usually.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah,
good
so
point.
I just think that there's a little breakdown there, or just they're taking for granted a client.
I feel like this, I feel the same. Do we actually have a long-term contract with this company?
I believe it's annual.
So it's annual at this point.
Mhm. I'll reach out to their finance department,
Okay,
talk to somebody over there, and Mark will shadow them the next time.
okay,
We'll see what other avenues we could explore.
okay. Are there any other board questions?
No,
This time?
no.
I would accept a motion to pay the bills if anyone is so inclined.
Madam Chair, I move that we graciously accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. There are no other questions from the board. David, you said you have none either?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public here? We have 3 public tonight. How about on Zoom? Do we have anybody who has any questions regarding the bills? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you. And moving on to, so there's old business, none really to discuss, so on to new business. Discussion and consideration of planning commission initiatives. So we do have planning commission members here. Ernie, do you want to come on up and give us, yeah, please, if you don't mind, make sure that the microphone is at your height and talk directly into it, please.
Good evening.
Hey,
Thanks for
Ernie.
coming out.
My name's Ernie Harkness. And I want to appreciate you giving us the time, put us on the agenda to provide some discussions.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. Just give me a couple minutes for background, and I'll talk about what it is I'd like to present to you today. Planning commission is actually defined by ordinance. I have a copy of the ordinance if you want. Everything else is in your package except this, but we're defined by ordinance 63 in the planning code, which allows us to do the work we do. If you take a look at our goals, which I think is in your package, you'll see some of the stuff we did in 2021 is kind of like variances and conditional releases, conditional use permits and things like that that come across your desk. Most of the stuff that we look at as part of the planning commission, a lot of it is dictated by an ordinance that says we will review it prior to going to the zoning board, to the board of supervisors, and make the appropriate recommendation. So that's kind of the call it the yeoman's work, more or less.
Standard,
with
yeah.
the planning
Yeah.
commission. Over the last 3 years, might have been 4, we've had some goals in there to put in place to achieve some specific items. So just for some background, in the state of Pennsylvania, the municipalities, townships are required to have a comprehensive plan, and it's developed or reviewed every 10 years. In the East Ocean, the comprehensive plan was developed. The most recent one was revised in 2015. That was a pretty significant effort with a lot of individuals, a lot of input from the public and what have you. And they came up with a number of goals to move the township forward. And then out of that also came the Bailey Pike Carter Comprehensive Plan. some of the things you see here, for example, I'm not gonna, I can give a detail, but like objective 9.1, 9.2, 7.2, they all come out of the comprehensive plan, and they have been on our list of goals for, I think, since at least 2019. The reason being is these are not easily attainable. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of public input, takes a lot of we've hired folks for some of the stuff we'll talk about. So we maybe can capture one over every year or two or something like that. So it's a lot of time and effort. There is one item, the third bullet down where it talks about the Kelly Pike Carter with regard to the town center. That was asked by us to provide some input into that several years ago. We developed ordinance to support that objective, and that was through a number of public meetings with the Planning Commission, a number of work with some professional folks. And what we have at that point, we have developed ordinance for that, and it has also been reviewed by the County Planning Commission. Right, so the next step in that process is comes to the Board of Supervisors. So what I'm really here is kind of like one request and one recommendation I'd like to provide to you. The request is maybe amongst yourselves, it doesn't have to be tonight, or you guys can in your working meetings. If there's something of these goals, for example, in the 9.1, 9.2, 7.2 objectives that you'd like us to focus on first, if you give us guidance, we could do that. Those goals, I want to be clear, if you read the comprehensive plan, a number of those are not immediate things. They're in the realm of 2 to 20 years for the most part. So they're very forward-looking, and they're to do things for the long range to better develop businesses and whatever in the township. The recommendation I'm going to give you is the town center ordinances we put together. They were originally come up to the board for review, but it came right at COVID. And we weren't able to really have efficient public meetings to conduct those, so they were put on hold. If you choose to decide to go forward with that, as the Board of Supervisors, your decision to move forward means that it would start the work going through public meeting, public input, and then discussion back and forth. And at some point down the line, you would make a decision whether you want to implement the ordinance or not. It's basically on your, it's at the Board of Supervisors for the next step. The recommendation I'd like to make is that if you choose to go forward with that, right, I would strongly recommend you allow the Planning Commission, I'll bring the right people with regard to the staff and the Planning Commission, to provide proper communication on how to present that to the board and to the public. So that it's presented in a fashion, puts out what that ordinance does, the facts behind it, what it doesn't do. We can talk about questions we've gotten on both sides of the issue so that we could properly present that to the public. I think, and I've spoken a few times in public on my own meetings, that I don't think there's times when we try to make changes where I don't think we've communicated properly with the right discussion to the public and actually the board and those. So things go out. I know when I talk to my neighbors, I hear things and say, well, that's not true. Where did you hear that? That type of stuff. The recommendation I'm making to you is if you want to go forward with that, I would suggest that you have us support you in developing the communication, and we'll come to the meetings and provide whatever background information you need to discuss that in response with that. So bottom line is, if you have what we have down here for our goals, is there something that you'd like us to start focusing on? Right now, we have a light schedule for 2022. There's not very many ordinances or variances that come across. We could start moving on this. I don't think any of this will get done this year, but we could at least lay out a plan that we acted like we did for the town center.
Thanks,
Ernie,
Ernie.
Ernie, can I comment?
Okay.
Can I comment?
I'm done. I'm ready.
I just thanked him. I was going to ask if you had any questions or you wanted to make any comments, David.
Yeah, the ordinance that was written, we originally had the T&D proposals, and then after public, we'll just call it public input. The Planning Commission came back and revised, dialed back, and it's really no longer the T&D. It was just kind of more homogenization of the zoning in that corridor. So the ordinance that was proposed was after input from the board and input from the planning commission and input from the public. And that's kind of where it stands now. Is that correct?
I believe that's accurate, Mark. Is that correct? There were some changes that were discussed that weren't revised in it. But I know what I can say is that the ordinance as it's currently written has had a significant amount of input in what changes have been put in. There were some discussions about maybe revising the existing ordinances to make some changes, but that had not been developed.
If, for example, I'm just thinking of the residential density, we were talking about 8 units per acre with a minimum of 1,000 square feet for apartments. That's the revised because it was significantly larger. And also we changed the setback where we had the mandatory that the buildings had to be up close to the, and we changed it to a minimum setback so that the buildings could be staggered. We really adjusted a lot of the, I was just trying to, I think it might be a good idea to, I don't know what you want to do next, if you want to have the board read the ordinance and then discuss it amongst ourselves or in a public meeting, or, what's the best way, but this is the revised after input, 2 years ago, right?
Yes, I think, I don't have a full ordinance in front of me. So I don't want to speak to the specifics. I know we had 1,000 foot in there and there was a density of 10 dwellings, but there was discussion on changing that. Not to get into specifics, what I would suggest that if you want to start this in the forward motion, let's go ahead and start the process. Let's take a look at it. We can make adjustments to it. We can revise it, make adjustments to it so it's more palatable before we take it to a public forum. So, and you can do that through the liaison with the planning commission. I think the bottom line is, if we want to move with that, we should go ahead. Let's restart the process, take a look at it, review it, see what we don't like, what we do like, how can we make adjustments. I've also, in addition to that, we've also done some work. It could be changed to just the C2 and the C5 districts. That would be probably, it would be palatable, I think, to some of the comments we got before, but I don't know if it would be as in-depth as what we had proposed. Okay? So bottom line is, if you want to start the ball rolling with that, that's your decision to make. If you do, what I'm saying is I recommend we'll support that in whatever way you want. My recommendation would be to start reading it and see where you want to go.
Okay, Mike, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I am interested. I do believe the period of the COVID did cause us to push this aside for obvious reasons. If we were going to have public input, which we need, that was not the right time. I do recall now the changes that were made, moving away from the name TND and looking at it from a different perspective to remove that. And I'm very supportive of the Planning Commission bringing this back into our wheelhouse, returning, rejuvenating this discussion and allowing the board to wrap ourselves around it. And then see what kind of input we have as a board in concert with the Planning Commission over these next months ahead. And then open it up for a public, information session and input, a hearing or anything of that nature well down the line. As Ernie said, it could be next year, but to refresh us, get us back invested in it, because I'm interested in investing in the corridor relative to some changes and looking at the future to try and improve the marketability, and which in turn will play into the aesthetics and the curb appeal and the, if you will, a more unified approach to this section, which does have gets a lot of attention in the township. So I'd like to see the Planning Commission bring it back to us. Let us get the ordinance, at least the last draft, into our thinking and begin to digest it and, you know, give some feedback and see where we stand as a board, whether there's a consensus or to, if nothing else, open it up to the public or some additional changes before it would get opened up to the public with an informational session, public information session. So I'm supportive of the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Cody, do you have any comments or questions for Ernie?
No, I think I just echo Mike's sentiment in regards to getting it in front of us again and discussing everything, see what our differences are, what we can come back with, so we don't keep going back and forth 100 times. Maybe we can, whether we move forward with it or if we don't, then you guys get it off your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, like, you know, if we send it back to you and we don't like it, I just want to keep taking it back and forth if nothing's moving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that's good that get in front of us and we can talk among each other and see where we stand. But I understand the desire and the need to beautify it or make it more remarkable. Just how we get there is something that I'm still learning from a fire hose from all this information. So, it's a discussion I want to have.
I think my point here in coming to you is to say, if you choose that route, which I think is a good route, let us be supportive and help you so that you have the action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, John, do you have any comments this time?
First of all, I want to remind you, Ernie, I think you're aware of this. Michelle and I, when we ran for the board, ran as opposed to the trail because of the cost and as opposed to the TND and the overlay. We were particularly opposed to the idea of apartments. And I stand on that firmly. I will not vote for apartments in the middle of the township. The other thing I want to call to everybody's attention is the video, and it's still available on the East Goshen website, of December 17th, 2019. That was the last meeting before I came onto the board and Michelle came onto the board. We had over 300 people. We actually had people who were downstairs in the lobby because they couldn't get up here. And I can assure you, the vast majority of them were totally opposed to the TND. I think what they were opposed to was I call it the barbell effect, the two overlay zoning areas, one beyond Boot Road and one beyond 352. They were also opposed to making the middle of the town look like West Goshen or West
Wayland.
Exton, West Whiteland, you name it. And they were adamantly opposed to the apartments, at least all of the people I talked to.
John, this is exactly what we're talking about people misinformed about what was being proposed. The people who said that East Goshen was going to look like West Whiteland, or some people said the borough of Westchester. That was never the proposal. People didn't listen. They didn't choose to educate themselves. And this will be an opportunity to readdress all those concerns.
Yeah.
All right, well, I listened and it's not the first time I've gone over a zoning plan. And I can tell you that I will oppose apartments totally. I will oppose any extension beyond 352 or Boot Road. So I'm not saying I won't look at a plan coming back, but I want to be clear how I feel. We ran on that proposal. I think we ran against Haley Pike Trail. We've now come to a compromise, I think, among the board members on an alternative route that I hope the Planning Commission is aware of. Although I get the impression that not everybody on the commission watches our board meetings. But anyway, if you come back with something, it would be welcome to me, but I want to let you know my prejudices ahead of time.
John, that's great. I mean, your prejudice, it really doesn't affect whether I'm providing your product.
Right.
If you have that decision to make, so it's your decision.
Right. I'm not going to go into it as much as John did because I echo his comments to a certain extent. Maybe I would be a little bit more emphatic about certain things. But I'm gonna say the same. I don't want to see apartments in this particular area along Bailey Pike. Frankly, we have thousands of apartments and condominium type of housing in the southern part of the township. At this point, I would be very interested in seeing what a proposal would be to make it more of a homogeneous type of zoning. I think that's going to be important. And then, you know, can we also apply this to any other area in the township? I don't know. And that would be an interesting exercise as well. As far as this, I don't want to see TND anymore. I don't want it to even have TND on there at all. I'd like you to be creative, coming up with something different so that it can be marketed as such, as a new product.
Why are you opposed to TND?
The residents in this township came out wholeheartedly against TND overlay. Okay, so the traditional neighborhood development was not something they were in favor of. So I would rather see a rebranding, if you will, internally, just so that people can have maybe a fresh perspective and not have as much opposition to possibly rezoning. Okay? I'm not,
My
that's
personal opinion
what I'm
is
saying.
I'm not sure that was really communicated properly. If we can discuss that all you want. But the bottom line is, it's up to you to make that decision if you want to go forward with it. You have a ordinance on, it's at the Board of Supervisors table. You have the next action on it. So that's
Okay.
your decision to make, and I appreciate your input.
Okay, and then regarding some of the other items, can we discuss some of the other items as well? Go ahead.
Let's ask a question.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm still learning all of this in regards to zoning and the current ordinance that is at the board level right now. Is there in the ordinance, can we do high-rise apartments? Is it?
No.
Okay, so the one we're looking at, the only thing that in regards to new apartments would be if we
Above
want
business.
above business. So if, let's say we liked, I'm just hypothetically saying that this ordinance, we liked everything. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but let's say we just wanted to cross that out. That's something that we could do. Okay. I honestly trying to figure this out.
So-
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Michelle, if I'm not mistaken, the revised draft, I don't recall that we were using TND in the revised draft. Was it still showing up in the revised draft, or was it taken out and just we were working with ordinance changes, but not.
I have to look, I believe it's still in.
Okay, because I think, let me step back for a moment to that fateful night on the 17th of December. It was a miscue by the then board to have that meeting. It was a mistake frankly, and I will say, I kind of advised the board before the meeting. I said, this is ill-advised to have a meeting when there are two outgoing supervisors and pressing this issue at this point in time. Unfortunately, the meeting occurred, and as a result, there was just a conflagration because the feeling that the timing that was being pushed through and rushed through, and it was a disaster. It was the worst meeting I've attended in 6 years that I've been on the board. And the notion, some of the ideas within the then TND were distorted, unfortunately, with these visions of high rise and blocks of apartments, and it was a distorted image that blew up in that conflagration, and it was all very unfortunate. And I've said that concept, as it's shown in Act 247, the Municipalities Planning Code, it's actually a recognized planning vehicle. It's been poisoned here in East Goshen, and I'm not going to support a TND when we can do a lot of positive things in the corridor, 352 to Boot Road, with ordinance changes, both zoning and subdivision, to improve the future opportunities that we're thinking about for this corridor. Homogenization isn't necessarily, a mix of uses. The idea of originally with the TND about apartments and creating this original traditional neighborhood concept of having a business and a mom and pop thing with an apartment up above, as we've seen in towns, et cetera. It's very, it's a bit nostalgic. It's not a necessary ingredient for some of the things we're going to try and do in this corridor. But from my perspective, the TND has been poisoned. It really should be removed, and let's just work with, I'm not going to say subtle, but ordinance changes within those two vehicles, zoning and subdivision, that can accomplish many of the things. And if there are elements of uses like apartments above that we're not comfortable with, okay. But there are still other things that have to do with design guidelines and setbacks and other items. And that's what I'd like to see fomented here going forward. And
I agree
so
with that too.
that's my sense.
And I agree with that as well, and so does John. Okay, and so regarding,
David,
do you have any other
David,
comment to that,
any
David?
comments, David, at this point?
No, I think to make a statement that right now that that, you know, the way you're going to vote kind of shuts off dialogue. You know, I think people just have to, I think you're right, Mike. TND is poison. People didn't understand the concept of TND, which is actually, you know, anybody who came in to develop could maintain the status quo, but if they were going to make changes, they would make changes in accordance with our new ordinances. And that's the whole concept of TND. That was never understood by the public. Number one. Number two, the dwelling density was an issue. And I think people thought, well, how many acres are in between that corridor? And when they came up with 8 acres or whatever, people did multiplication and said, oh my God, that means there's going to be 80 apartments in that corridor. That wasn't accurate. It was never going to happen. The other thing was that apartment buildings were never proposed for that corridor. It was always apartments above retail. So, you know, the whole concept of it was totally misunderstood. And you're absolutely right, Mike. And Ernie made the point that, you know, it was never properly communicated or described to people. And people just came in, I think, with a predisposed, because they were frankly rallied up by a group of people who did not understand what we were trying to do. So I think we're going to miss an opportunity if we don't look at that corridor, homogenize the zoning so that you have rational development in that area. We have 2 empty buildings right now. We have a bank building. The other building has been purchased and is going to go through renovation. Other buildings have passed hands on that corridor, and we're going to miss an opportunity to beautify East Goshen if we make this a political issue. That's all I'm going to say.
And David, that's where we all 5 of us have agreed at this point that we should move forward and allow the planning commission to send that ordinance back to us and then work with it from there. And we've
Okay.
all already agreed on that.
All right.
Moving on to the next issue, I wanted to let you know that
Can you just clarify if there's ask to the staff?
the task for the staff would be to send the ordinance
The
to
current-
all of us.
that current
the
draft.
current version
So we
of
can
the ordinance.
Start to wrap ourselves.
Let's go
freshly.
ahead and have the previous ordinance sent as well so that Cody can get brought up to speed,
Yeah.
please. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. So in other
Then you
words,
can
we're
be brought up to
freshening up
speed.
the whole conversation with the existing drafts that we've had. Cody particularly, but all of us, because it's been on pause
It's
and
been on
been the
pause,
back
agreed.
burner. So we've
So we
forgotten
all
about
need
it.
to see it.
So I think that's what we've
Yes,
agreed upon. There's
absolutely.
unanimity there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
I think
Yeah,
real quick,
yeah.
I'll meet with Bill and Derek and I can talk about the existing ordinance, look at it,
Yeah,
bring it to, get it on the ordinance, kind of an outline,
yeah.
kind of an executive summary. of
Yeah.
That's fine.
Details.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And good
Okay.
for you, Bill, too, to be involved, because then you wrap yourselves around it or yourself around it with the experience that you have. Okay, great.
And then Ernie, as far as reviewing the business park task force report to identify action items, we did take into consideration the suggestion for the business breakfast. And that is something that we had talked about at the planning meeting, moving that to potentially September, October is my understanding. So we have taken that under consideration, and we are hopefully going to be working on that, if not now, soon. So that's one thing that we actually have moved on. As far as the first objective 9.1, I'd just like to go through them real quickly. Maintaining and expanding open space, recreation and trails network. I would really like to see, my personal opinion is I would like to see if this is something that could be ongoing for a period of time, but potentially identifying and then enumerating where the open space opportunities would be in our township. And just let the board know, maybe through the staff liaison, which would be Mark, your board liaison is John. So letting him know you've identified something.
Yeah, I think we have that.
So I think that,
And-
yeah,
Yeah. think we
I
have
don't
that.
think expanding so much, but not maintaining and expanding, but mainly just identifying where those opportunities could be.
Yes, I think we have that. We'll get that, we can get that too. I just want to just, right on that point though.
Yeah,
If you go to the, when you look at the town, the comprehensive plan.
right.
If you look at the back, there's a matrix. And 9.1 is a priority 2 what they put on, but that the time frame is 2 to 20 years.
Right,
So we're talking.
Right.
long-term.
It's
I understand
it's
that.
almost generational.
Yeah.
right. But still, of course.
That's right.
And
That's
like
right.
I
It's a
said, it's
bill of
not
time.
something, but something where, you know, if these parcels can be identified,
Yeah.
perhaps the board would be, whether it's this board or a future board, consider making an investment. As far as developing the Paley Pike Trail to create linkage between Westchester, Malvern through East Goshen to West Goshen to Wellestown. Fact is that we've got our connectivity to Willistown at this point, and we're working on alternative plans to get connectivity over West Goshen. So that's something that you don't necessarily have to work on so much as maybe work with us on looking at the alternative routes.
So the option, yeah, the reason why there, if you were to come up with a need for an alternative route, the development may have to come through us for input. That's the point.
Well, we've actually identified a couple of alternative routes.
We need to
So
look
can
at-
I?
Can we share
can
them
I-
with the
can
planning
I-
commission
yeah,
then?
Can I make a
Yes.
suggestion? Can I
Yeah.
make a suggestion? So we have Pinoni revising what we talked about before, essentially adding a mini loop, if you will. Ernie, I can get in this via the email. I know some of this is going to be out of context, but we have that mini loop coming back with cost analysis of, we were talking about back in the envelope cost analysis.
Right.
I think a next good step would be if we decided to go with the mini loop or not, we have that narrowed down with the costs attached to it. And then go back to Pinoni and let them know exactly which one we discussed and which one we picked. And then we could send it to the planning commission, not for a formal review of anything yet, but sort of a informal comment period, whether you want to have it for a meeting or two. And then we go back to the board. So I don't know if that would be something to be amenable
we
to.
can talk- I'll talk with Mark on it, but it's not something we need to review. We'll work through it.
But I would like to see the planning commission be involved in a collaborative way. I think we have the advice and advisories through the ABCs at our, if you will, our disposal. And I'd like to spread out the conversation so that it doesn't absolutely rest with the board. Ultimately, it will have to rest with the board, but to open it up, let the planning commission have their eyes on it and get some comment on it at this early stage. I think that's of value. Well, I think that they should start to have, we should have an open discussion with this. I mean, we've introduced it, if you
Let's
will,
be
already
clear, Mike.
publicly.
We'd like their help, very much like their help. We don't need their approval.
No, oh, no. No,
I
they're
just-
advisory.
John, nobody's saying that. I think nobody's saying we need their approval. What we're saying is that you can read an ordinance, but I've attended all those meetings when we were developing, and there's a lot of discussion and thought and opinions and dialogue back and forth that resulted in the ordinances. And I think that if you don't have an open dialogue, it's hard to understand just reading an ordinance, why it looks like that. So, I would like to see a special meeting where the board reads the ordinances, gets its questions. We sit down with the planning commission and call a special meeting, have it be an official board meeting, a one topic board meeting, and it would be how to address, I think it's one of the major issues in the township right now. And I keep saying we're going to miss an opportunity if we don't get this right. And I think it's so important that I think a special single topic meeting with an open discussion on what that corridor should look like would be a time well spent.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I don't, are you talking about we were referring to we were talking about the trail just
Ice
now,
cream?
and I think that you're back to the.
I'm
Peddling
talking
Pike-
about I'm talking about
Business
they're kind of, if you'll pardon the pun, tangential issues, but yeah, I'm talking about, I'm coming back to readdress a special meeting that we should have on the Peddling Pike corridor. I think just us reading the ordinance isn't really going to be enough. Ernie made a point that last time it wasn't presented well to the board or to the public. And I think that I'd like to propose that we call a special meeting, a single topic meeting. And if you want to include the trail linkage, we could include that in the meeting as well.
I think that that's something that we'll have to discuss offline. And I think that it's more important we get back to giving Ernie some direction, because that's why they're here tonight. They want to have some direction on some of these other issues as well. And so as far as another meeting, a special meeting, that's something that we'll have to have a discussion about.
I think that may be down the road. So
think
I hear what
that's a
David's
little
saying,
premature.
but I'm with you. I
But we're
think
all
ultimately
saying-
we're gonna have to do that. I
And
think,
we're all
David.
saying that
We
the
should do it.
communication is important, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have devoted this much time to this if it was not important. As far as objective 7.2, the promoting the enhancement of business opportunities along Westchester Pike corridor. I think this is another long-term thing, isn't it, Ernie?
Yeah.
I mean, in the comprehensive plan, this is not something that's a one and done. It's,
Yeah, that's the corridor that back towards where.
that's Westchester Pike.
Entire planning.
Yeah.
With the license.
Consultant.
Yeah.
yes.
Clear, concise, objective, and master plan. for Westchester.
Yeah, I think that that's something
I
that's
agree.
a longer-term issue.
I don't think that's. on the table.
And I cannot imagine that this is something that we can actually bite off right now. This is another project that's gonna cost us money to have a consultant come in, and then at this point, all I can say is maybe we can, if somebody, if they wanted to identify vacant businesses, and make suggestions as to what businesses can come in, that's a different story.
Okay.
But as far as, I think that's too big of a project to bite off. So as far as moving forward with transforming Westchester Pike corridor to more functional and attractive artery, again, that would be part of really the 7.1 objective as well.
They are. kind of-
They're tied together, but the other concern is we really can't do anything about making it more beautiful because it's a PennDOT-owned road and they don't even maintain what they've got.
If you have a master plan that outlines what developers are required to do, and landscaping and setbacks, as these properties get redeveloped, they get developed in accordance with that. new plan.
Yeah,
That's
Right,
how
but-
you-
there's value, there's
Of
value.
course.
It's a long-term plan.
So that would
So-
incorporate Saldo as well then, right?
So
And
that's-
there's also, again, that, just for a moment that we're talking about this, our Westchester corridor, that's just one little segment, and we've got municipalities on that stretch on either side, and what are their thoughts? What are they doing? Because ultimately, I guess we could create an oasis with some great planning effort and the market responding to our little section of the corridor, but it'd be nice to know that there's some continuity of at least planning concepts and thought that may be affected through some of the ordinances on our neighboring municipalities along the corridor, to see what their thoughts are. So, I mean, so as you just said, Mark, it is a planning exercise. It will take some time, if you will, a master plan that would involve a little bit of a broader regional context of what of our neighbors are doing. That's often part of a master plan. You're looking at, the either side of your island, if you will, and you can't look at it as an island.
Just like you recently commented on
West Whitelands Comp Plan, that's right.
Something you want to take to the talk and discuss, and say, look, this is what we're working on. We'd like to get your input, you want to come to one of our meetings, send a representative, talk about
Yeah.
the connections, we've got West Ocean, we've got Westtown. So how do their zoning, how do their plans on Westchester Pike kind of marry up
Yeah.
and blend with what we're doing.
These are long conversations, but if you don't have them, it just gets longer. And then you look down the road and you go, well, now we really didn't talk about the last 5 years. If you at least foment some kind of conversation. So it does take that kind of, and oftentimes it comes out of the planning commission, Ernie, that those kind of, that kind of stimulus, keeps it going, because that's what the planning commission is. They're planning. You're planning. Planning implies looking forward. It is futuristic when you're putting it in that context.
Something that staff may be even able to take to restoration planning. That is what we're working on, looking for your input, feedback, same with Westtown, the ideas, thoughts, concerns.
Well, I think that that's something that Cody actually could take to the COG under maybe a new business or put on the agenda, just to find out if there are any partners, neighbors rather, that are actually doing anything with that corridor.
Yeah.
And I think just a discussion, a
Part of the
high
round
level
table.
discussion at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Derek will remember
the
that.
unfortunate thing is Willistown is not a part of the COG, so that's gonna
No.
be a little bit of a gap there, but West
No, but-
Ocean is, so.
But we're talking specifically Westchester Pike corridor.
Oh, that's right. It kind of bumps into it. That's right.
Oh, I'm speaking specifically Paley Pike.
No,
but
we're
yeah.
talking Westchester.
Okay.
Pike.
Okay. We're
Oh.
jumping around a little bit. I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
So just for clarity.
yes,
right
yes,
now, I
let's
think
have
we've got
clarity.
full for the year.
I for at least a year.
9/1, we'll look at the open space and what's available.
Just
I
just
think
an
we've already done
inventory,
that, but- I
just
mean,
an inventory, yeah,
I'm saying, I think we've done that amongst ourselves. We haven't provided that to you.
okay,
We'll look at the plan on the trail, that discussion. 7.2, I think we'll take off the table for now, at least this year. And then with the Westchester part, I think we'll have a little bit more, we'll leave that on, but nothing's gonna happen this year on that, but you probably want to have a
Nothing.
discussion.
yeah, so Cody, the next initiative on that will be with Cody taking that to the COG to find out if there's anything going on with our neighbors.
You told me I actually signed something to the board of supervisors.
No, I actually don't, I don't think you actually, I think it was me asking him to do that, please.
And then I
So-
have the overlay district, obviously, we'll get that set up and bring it back to see.
Great.
See it. This next piece here with the ordinance changes.
Yeah.
That's really an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Each year, if we have some time, we look at some of the ordinances and revise them. I'm not looking for input on that. And then as far as the business park task force, we've been working with them, so.
Right, and like I said, the initiative that we took away from that was the breakfast. As far as the reviewing existing ordinances, I think that should be it's an ongoing thing, and Derek has brought a number of things to us that he wanted to update. And it's important
We
that we
actually did
continue
it.
to do that.
We actually did like an
So-
inventory of some of the areas as to, like the zoning, I'm sorry, the zoning district, C2, C5, R2, R3.
So if you
And so we
already
reviewed
started,
them.
if you've reviewed them, you can,
Restart.
that's great. Well, once you've done a review, then maybe you can update us what you've done by going through Derek and
Yeah.
giving him that, or giving it to John, just having him disseminate it between the rest of the board
Well, you-
members would be great.
Right, and then you'll see if there's any proposed change.
Right. So so it seems to me that you do have some direction. You hear that there is an interest in at least looking at the Paley Pike corridor specifically for a more homogeneous approach to things. And
And they'll get a chance to look at the
then you'll look at
alternate plans
the
and that
alternate,
sort of
the
thing.
alternate Paley Pike Trail.
But I've got what I need.
Great.
I have one thing just to remind you, that 2025 would be the 10-year revision.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's only if we choose to revise it at that time. It's not
Understand.
required by law.
I understand, I'm just saying, but I think it's suggested, but that's coming up in 2025. So whether you want to do that or not, it's up to you.
Okay.
Just want to remind you that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing that, because I think every 10 years for a municipality of 20,000 people plus or minus, I know what we are, 18,000 for 246. But yeah, it does. But I think it's an important exercise to endeavor with a municipality like this one. So I won't be on the board, but I will certainly support it. Thanks.
Thanks for coming, Ernie.
Thanks, Ernie.
I hope that that's helpful and we appreciate.
I
all of your
appreciate the
efforts.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
very
Ernie.
much.
Can I ask, can I make one quick comment, one quick question?
What?
I know, I'm real. My first comment is I look forward for the ordinance and I ordinance the one that we're gonna be seeing, and I hope that we can all forget 2019 a little bit when it comes
Me
to the
too.
meeting.
Yep.
Woo.
And then we can maybe not even talk about that, except learn from what the mistakes were. When it comes to the transparent for the communication of it. My question for you is the variance, this is from 2021, the variances that you reviewed and the board had approved. I'm just curious, out of the 6 or 7, how many did the board like follow the planning commission's recommendation? Do we know? I was just curious.
Yeah.
I believe that, yeah, I think
We appreciate the professionals that we have on that board.
They were all minor.
some of
Minor,
them,
okay.
I believe some of them also went to the zoning board, right?
Yes, they all go to the zoning.
So some of them might have gotten through us, but not the zoning.
All right, thank you very much, Ernie.
I
Ernie,
will-
thank you.
I will ditto Cody's comment.
Great.
All right, good.
So
Thanks,
moving on
Dave.
to considering the amendment to the township's rental occupancy reports. This ordinance would have the owner recording requirements from semi-annual to annually. So Derek, you want to take it from there?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. So we brought this up at the previous meeting just to introduce it and get approval for advertisement. It's a relatively simple change. We do rental registration. Right now, we do it twice a year, June 30th and December 31st. We felt that it was a little bit cumbersome, both for us administratively as well as the residents that have rental units in the township. So talking with Mark Ward and Bill Crispin, we went over it, and we are proposing this change, doing it every June 30th, and that's it. So it will be semi-annually to annually. And the reason for sticking with June instead of December, it's just a little less of a crazy time of year for us internally. So again, if the board is agreeable to this change, the motion is on the table as you see it written.
Madam Chair, of course, we've reviewed this previously and had good input and the rationale and logic for it. So, Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt the amendment to Chapter 182 of the East Goshen Township Code of Ordinances titled Rental Occupancy Reports in order to reduce the required reporting from semi-annually to annually.
Second.
I'll
motion.
second.
Great.
You got it.
Yep, thank you, David. And is there any discussion from the board members? Any questions regarding
No.
this ordinance change?
Smart
I
administration.
can chime in. I did
I'd
follow up
appreciate-
and reach out to Keystone
Thank you.
to see what they thought about the impact of EIT by only doing it once a
Oh.
year. And they thought it was very minimal. They weren't able to quantify it exactly, but
Great, thank you very
De
much,
minimis.
David. Are there any questions from our remaining person in the room? Are there any questions or concerns from anyone on our Zoom platform? David, do you have any questions or concerns regarding, I think I asked you that,
I don't. Less government is good.
but okay, I like that. So there's nobody with their hands raised. So I'm going to call the question, should we pass the amendment to the township code to reduce the required reporting from semi-annually to annually? Aye,
Aye.
thank you. And then this also is, we're supposed to consider the amendment to the township's peddling and soliciting ordinance, commonly referred to the do not knock list. Derek, you want to?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So this is a little bit more of a robust change, but not very. So we were looking at a specific situation where I guess a salesperson and solicitor went to a door and they were on the East Goshen do not knock list. So whether it was intentional or not, I just had a look at for the first time, the ordinance since I've been the manager here. And what we found is we didn't think there was enough teeth to really, I mean, there was some language on how, corrective measures can take place, but we thought it needed, talking with Bill, we thought it needed a little bit more teeth to outline specifically what is going to happen to this person if they, ignore this do not knock list. So what we came up with was this proposed, language change, which makes it a little bit of a progressive system. So, one time they get a written and verbal warning from myself. The second time they are banned for a year. So This would be the responsibility of me to kind of monitor this and penalize whoever the respective company and party would be. So again, a motion is on the table for this one as well. Bill, our solicitor, is here. Bill Chrisman. Sorry, didn't mean to just call you Bill. If any specific questions, we are both here at your disposal.
I'm going to simply say that we reviewed this previously. It seems from a management, administrative, and also a resident service to be respectful of our residents, which is front and center. That this makes sense to clarify and to have a little bit more value added to the ability for us to enforce this and make it meaningful. So, but that said, I'd at least put the motion out there. So, Madam Chair, I'd move we authorize advertisement of an amendment to Chapter 169 of the East Goshen Township Code of Ordinances titled Peddling and Soliciting to authorize the revocation of a peddling and solicitation license for failure to abide by the township's do not call and do not knock list.
Thanks,
Mr.
Bill.
Lynch, I apologize
Yeah,
for
I'm sorry.
interrupting. If I may, I'd ask that you amend your motion. This was advertised.
That was
So-
my fault. The motion's incorrect. I apologize.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I saw the ordinance here
Yeah.
and I
I think I just left
Well, I
the
saw
from
the-
last
that didn't
time.
mean-
I
yeah.
left the motion on there from last.
so I
time.
would authorize, thank you,
Your microphone.
Mr. Solicitor, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Bill, thank you. So I would amend that or just rescind that motion and restate it. Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt an amendment to Chapter 169 of the East Goshen Code of Ordinances titled Peddling and Soliciting. And I'm going to read the ordinance title, which is an ordinance of the Township of East Goshen, Chester County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 169 of the East Goshen Township Code of Ordinances titled Peddling, Soliciting, in order to authorize the revocation of a peddling and soliciting license for failure to abide by the township's do not call registry regulations.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you, Cody. And are there any questions from any of the board members? David, do you have any questions or concerns with this ordinance?
I have none.
Anybody from the board? We're good?
If I could make one comment, just to
Yes,
be
thank
clear, I just want to specify, this is currently in your ordinance, but Derek brought up a good point that it's on him to make sure that this is enforced. And it's his obligation to impose these sanctions should someone violate the rules and regulations or the do not call list. But there is an appellate procedure. So if someone disagrees with your manager's interpretation, no offense, Derek, but it could happen, it comes here to the board.
Okay.
So there are a couple layers of protection.
Okay, so
I would look forward to that.
an individual
Yeah, me too.
or company could say,
Said the spider to the
please,
fly.
take pity on us, we didn't realize.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any questions from anybody here in the room? Are there any questions or concerns from anyone out in our Zoom platform? And seeing no hands, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. None opposed. Thank you. So we will adopt this new amendment to give Derek the power to exercise the consequences. Consider approval for Proxys HR as the consultant for employee evaluation compensation structure project.
Thank you again. So another sort of old issue that we've been working on quietly after we approved it the first time. January 18th meeting, the board gave us approval to move forward with the consultant. I think as we were discussing at that meeting, Dave and I being new, we really wanted to take a bite at the apple with annual employee evaluation, how that ties into compensation, and looking at the salary matrix. We just felt it was time to look at a fresh update for all this. So we were able to speak with 4 consultants. 2 did not participate. We didn't really want to go national with this search, and there was a couple of national firms I could have looked at. I know it's a little easier nowadays with Zoom meetings and all that, but kind of wanted to stay a little bit more local. So we were able to get quotes from 2, Peter Johnson Company, who is a reputable firm, local firm who does good work, and then Proxys HR based in Radnor. Dave attended all the meetings with me with all these consultants, so he can speak on this as well. But we felt that the proposal was simple, easy to understand. They kind of got what we were looking for because we didn't do an RFP. I personally think when it's so open-ended where I'm looking for ideas from the consultant, I don't find an RFP helpful. So I kind of let them get creative with it, which I did. And I think they were, simplistic, but straightforward and thorough enough where I think we're going to get a good product. I also think it's important to note that even though professional services is not low bid situation, they were the low quote here.
Okay.
So we think the price is in the realm of what we were discussing and no problem. So I would just ask the board if we're allowed to continue this engagement to make that motion on the table tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, Derek, I would chime in. They were highly recommended by one of the finance directors at the finance director over at West Whiteland. After we spoke with them, they were super responsive. They got us a fully fleshed out outline, and we went over with them just days later. I think they're going to work out really well.
That's great. Is there going to be a do not exceed clause in here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it says, yeah.
Yep. That's the motion as well.
How much was the other bid for?
So the other bid was a little bit more complicated because it was a little bit more a la carte, and I could share that, but since we didn't go with them, I didn't want to put it in the packet, but I think it ranged anywhere from 15 to 22, depending on which specific services we did.
Yeah, it was pretty much 19. Something.
Yeah.
All right. I would entertain a motion if anybody wanted to make one.
Madam Chair, I move we approve engagement with Proxys for HR consultant services for an amount not to exceed $14,700.
I'd second that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board?
I just want to ask one, which I didn't ask before the motion, but it's okay. Because I'm believing and accepting the recommendation of the manager and the director of finance. But has Proxys had any clients that are municipal?
Yes, West
Question.
Whiteland was the one we got the recommendation from.
Oh,
And
excellent.
they're right next door.
Excellent.
They mentioned a few other ones
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So they have that, they
Yeah.
understand that organizational.
And
excellence.
it's a good
obvious in
question
our
because it's
discussion.
very different from private
Yes,
sector.
well,
so,
that's why
And it was obvious in our discussions with them. They picked up right on what we were looking for.
they knew you were G-men.
Great.
That's right. Okay, very good.
David, do you have any questions or concerns?
I don't. I'm just assuming staff vetted it,
Yeah.
access to data on this type of project is really critical. So the question about, doing other municipalities is a good question. So, I look forward. This is a good project. I'm glad we're finally taking this step.
Are there any questions regarding this from either of you? And are there any questions from anyone out in Zoom land? I see no hands, so I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of awarding Proxys this consultant contract? Aye.
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 And thank you. Consider the SD and LD agreements for 1501 Meadowbrook lot number 1. And I'm hoping that since Mark is here, do you mind coming up and talking to us about that? Thank you.
Mark, tell me what SD and LD stand for.
Subdivision land development plan.
Okay, it wouldn't hurt to put that in.
Okay. So back in 2018, the board approved a subdivision land development plan at 1501 Middlebrook Lane, a 2-lot subdivision, where lot 2 was an existing home, which was demolished and reconstructed in the same general location with some additional stormwater. Lot 1 was set aside for sale, and with the market the way it was, it sat for a while. The owner did not want to, put up escrow and wait for a couple of years. the board agreed to grant a waiver from that subdivision requirement to post those financial securities and land development agreements and pass those along to the new owner developer in the future. So we have, lot one has been sold to a family with still a new home. They have a contract with the contractor and they have a construction loan and they're ready to move forward. They've submitted financial security and now indicated by their engineer and approved by Benoni, 93,225. Thank you. The challenge here is that we have a financial security vehicle document that really matched up with this one lot kind of scenario. So I asked Mr. Chrisman, he had something that we could use. He was very familiar with this type of thing. Obviously, he's done it a number of times. So not a tri-party agreement with a corporation building or developing a lot. It's a private owner. Whereas the private owner can't just go to the bank and get financial security of $93,000, a letter of credit, because they're not INC or LLC. There's a lot of reasons. So this vehicle here is going to allow us to be the escrow, basically be the bank for them. They've already submitted and cash. Put in
Cash
the
escrow,
account,
okay.
and we'll entertain one withdrawal in the middle and a final withdrawal at the end. Pretty straightforward. Stormwater, sewer connection, a driveway expansion at the top and a pull-off area indicated on the subdivision plan. So they're anxious to get going, and the building permit should be ready within the next day or two. So they should get ready to break ground shortly once the board approves these agreements.
Madam Chair, I would, for the opportunity for further discussion, I would move that the Board of Supervisors, under the recommendation of our zoning officer and building official and with consultation with our township solicitor, approve and sign the following agreements for the subdivision and land development plan for 1506 Meadowbrook Lane, Lot 1, which is known as 706 Hemlock Hill Lane, with regard to the subdivision and land development construction and maintenance agreement, the financial security agreement, and the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mark, can you tell us how long of the project do you think this is going to be?
So their
Just an
construction
estimate.
loan is good for 1 year. I imagine they'll be under roof
6 months.
in probably 12 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks, and they'll be working on one side. But
Okay,
again, they have to finish this by, I think, April 1st.
okay. And we're going to hold in escrow then this amount. They can take one withdrawal at one point. They
Yeah,
withdraw that.
You may remember having escrow releases before you.
Right.
Where they submit a release request outlining what they are requesting. Public Works Director, myself, would look at it, make a determination if that's a reasonable request, and make a recommendation to the board. And we can release, cut a check for that amount.
Does
So-
that, excuse me, Madam Chair, does that $93,000 escrow, does that include a contingency, 10%? Yeah, as consistent with the code anyway. Okay, very good.
How much can they ask for? Let's say they get to the half point, the project is approximately halfway completed. Can they,
50% of 93 will happen pretty quick. Most of that stuff is upfront
Yeah.
costs, right?
okay,
Moving
Grading,
the earth,
erosion.
starting the
Right.
stormwater management, putting driveway construction entrance. I imagine it will be fairly quick.
Yeah.
I would say beginning of summer.
Yeah.
something
Okay.
Like that. And then as we get to the end, landscaping has to wait until fall. You don't want it to burn. You want to get it in when it's cooler. So I imagine.
That'll be the final
around
release.
Thanksgiving or so it should be around.
So it's half and half, but it's not 6 months and 6 months.
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
Right.
Okay.
Burden's on them. Burden's on them to complete it.
Exactly. And if I may, the language that we put in for this specific agreement says that once they hit 50%, they may ask for a
They
release.
don't.
It doesn't have to be right at 50%. They don't have to, but once they hit 50%, then they can.
Okay,
It could be 90%. They could ask for one, and then the final when it's completed, but at least 50%.
We currently have one right now going on 352. They've yet to ask for a release. They're just, they're moving so fast and furious that, it also was a letter of credit to the bank. On that one. So that's a little bit.
But by the way, it's a really minor amount, but I know when we've, in my past experience, when we did certain cash escrow agreements, if the township was serving as the administrator, if you will, that the interest accrued under the would be maintained by the township short of a fee for administering it. I don't know whether that's built into it. It's a minor amount these days, probably would end up to being 10 or 20 bucks at the most after a year, I think, Chris, right? So, but I wouldn't know whether that kind of provision was built in, Bill, or not.
There's no requirement that this be an escrow bearing account.
Oh, or an interest bearing account. Yeah.
So we're just put it
Just
in
kind
our
of-
own account and set aside and we'll account for it.
All right. Not a separate account, but it's separately accounted for. Very good.
okay.
That's all.
All right, any other board
That's all
questions?
correct.
Yep.
David, do you have any questions or concerns?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, anybody here in our audience? No. Anybody online? No. I'm going to call the question then. Those in favor of this agreement for Meadowbrook, 1501 Meadowbrook Drive, lot number 1? Aye,
Hi,
thank you. All right, considering
thanks, Mark.
consideration of the
Thanks.
moving.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
sign
we
it.
got it.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, yeah,
Of
of
course,
course,
of
understand. It's the American dream.
Yes. Yes, David, you said
David said
aye,
yes.
didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
I did.
Thank you. It was just a little garbled in the translation there, sorry. Consideration of moving the second meeting in May from the 17th, which is primary election day, to a different Tuesday. It's already been actually advertised as the 24th. And so that, or we can opt to hold only the one meeting. So,
I'm open. I'll leave it to you guys. I have flexibility.
so
I do too. My question is to Derek. How much business do you think we'll have?
I mean, it's tough to say that, 2 meetings ago, we had absolutely nothing, and then last meeting, we were slammed. So it just comes in ebbs and flows depending on when people get back to me, it doesn't, legally, you're good with just one meeting that month. If we do one meeting in May and we come back in June, it'll probably be a long agenda. I mean, that's, a month worth of, building up will take its toll. It's nothing we can't handle, but.
Let's skip it.
David, do you have an opinion on this? Would you like to skip that meeting? Or do you want-
I will feel cheated if we skip a meeting. So I would, I would rather schedule the meeting for the 24th, and if we don't have agenda items, we could always, not have the meeting, I guess, but I think we have enough on our plate that I think a second meeting is probably a good idea. That's just my thought.
Okay. Cody?
As long as it's not before May 17th, we do that.
No, it would be the
I'm fine
24th.
with that. 24th is fine if we wanted to do, if we need that. I might be busy.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine with whatever you guys decide on, as I say.
Okay.
I'm retired.
Bummer. Okay,
I don't
so
go
guess
anywhere.
we're
But we
gonna
don't need a meeting, we don't need a motion.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
stick with the
We're gonna
24th
stick
and
with the 24th as
we'll go for it.
advertised.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
What do we got
And,
next? Where are we?
the consideration of a windscreen purchase for the tennis pickleball area.
We're getting there.
And so the windscreens, the $2,500 for windscreens.
We have a recommendation from our Parks and Recreation Director. And on that recommendation, Madam Chair, I would I would move to authorize the purchase of the windscreens from BSN Sports. Put the motion out there. BSN Sports in the amount of $2,122.85. For any further discussion, I'll put the motion out there.
Okay. Thank you for that. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any information on this that you guys want to provide?
In the budget?
Apparently it's.
I noticed it's budgeted, that's.
Yeah, that was, I just wanted to hear that.
I think
That goes,
just that I heard Jason, on really windy days, it becomes a pretty big problem in those busy courts. I don't play tennis or pickleball, so I.
No, I
couldn't
get
tell
it.
you, but-
I get it.
Packed all the time. I always have my kids down at the park in those pickleball courts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
apparently these things really help with those situations. So.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from anybody here in the room or on Zoom? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question to purchase the windscreens for our pickleball courts. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Mike.
I'm right there with you.
Okay,
Yes.
we have 5 ayes. All right, consider the awarding of HVAC service contract based on bid results. So this was a memo from Mark. You want to fill us in?
This is a memo from Mark Miller for our HVAC service contract. And it's quite frankly, it's pretty straightforward. The Precision Mechanical has had it. They were low bid and Mark is basically asking that we stick with Precision Mechanical for the amount of $14,511 for the HVAC service contract.
Good.
The
That's
same
easy.
question, are we budgeted?
We are budgeted for HVAC service. I don't know the specific amount.
Yeah, it's actually more than this.
Okay.
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 This is under budget slightly.
All right, good.
Excellent.
Madam Chair, I, under the staff recommendation, that Precision Mechanical be awarded the bid for the Hvac service contract in the amount of $14,511 for a 1-year contract and 2 additional years that we can re-sign. That's the motion I'll put out there. My question, I guess, related to that motion is this an annual review and subject to approval each year, the same as any other contract where we've got extended? So it has to come back before the board each year? Okay.
Yes.
Second the motion. Dave, is this at the same rate for, in the second and third year or not?
That I haven't seen the contract with that part.
Okay.
Okay, let's, yeah,
So if it comes back before us, depending on if there's an escalation clause, we can make a call at that point, whether we get advance notice, whether we want to rebid it. Since we're not obligated beyond 1 year.
Just like trash services, how they work. usually.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that $14,511 seems like an awful lot of money for an HVAC system. It's just the maintenance contract. Can you tell us, Dave, I forgot to ask you this earlier. When is the HVAC system scheduled for replacement? Do you know?
That I don't know offhand.
Okay,
Find out.
so,
Yeah, we just did.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem.
Oh, it's a geothermal. That adds to it.
Complicated.
Some air handlers.
I was gonna say, I know there were a bunch of air handlers.
Plus, this would also include the district court building, all those units over there as well.
okay, and do they maintain the wells if something were to start leaking the wells?
Yeah, they're full service as far as the geothermal inspections.
I don't know.
Oh, no, well, the repair if it was
But the
necessary,
repair
but
would
it's
be
not gonna cover.
Oh,
any of
I
those
guess-
kind of.
I'm sorry, my point is they have the skill to
They have the
work
skill,
on that
that's fine.
issue. If,
As long as they've got this.
Yeah.
As long as they've got that skill
Yeah.
set, that's fine.
Do we know what the current contract amount is for this year, for instance, or?
What was the
what
other
the
question
most
I
recent-
had?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what was the increase?
Do you know?
And if we don't know and we're not comfortable, maybe we hold off. I don't know. I'm accepting their recommendation that they vetted it, but
All right, any questions in the audience or on Zoom? David, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, those in favor of awarding this contract?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you. All
Thank you,
right,
Mark.
we're wrapping up here soon. We've got to consider the replacement of 2 mowers. Mark Miller informs us these are budgeted for. And delivery time is 6 to 8 months, and that's if we're lucky.
Wow.
So that's not very reassuring.
John Deere. Madam Chair, under staff recommendation from the Director of Public Works, recommendation, the purchase of the John Deere from Little's in the amount of $16,696.28 and contained in the 2022 budget.
Mike, I think you actually read for the ATV Gator one.
You're a page ahead of us, Mike.
That's okay.
I'm sure I'm happy to make that one and then Mike can take the next one.
Oh, good.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
the staff, oh, never mind, now I'm reading the wrong one.
It wasn't just his age.
Okay, it's not written. Okay, staff recommends that the bid. Madam Chair, I just moved the motion that we buy these 2 lawnmowers, $14,598. That's included in the 2022 budget.
Thank you, Cody.
I second the
From the
motion.
what?
Thanks,
From
John.
Essex.
Okay, from S, yes. So these would be 2 mowers that we would be purchasing, Exmark mowers, purchasing in the amount of $14,998. Again, these have been budgeted for, and he's hoping to get delivery 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
All right. Does anybody have any questions here in the audience or on Zoom? Seeing none. David, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question then. Those in favor of buying.
Aye.
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 All right, moving on to the Gator purchase.
Any questions
Okay,
about my mental
Mike, this is
capacity?
where you are.
But-
This is where you come in.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, let's go back to that one, shall we? This is another one from our Public Works Director, and
Your
this one,
microphone.
this is another one from our Public Works Director for an ATV purchase. It is in the 2022 budget. There were prices received from 2 vendors. The low price and is recommended, Madam Chair, by the Director of Public Works to purchase the John Deere from Little's in the amount of $16,696.28.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? David?
I
Are
have
there any
none.
questions? None? Anything, anybody has concern in the audience on Zoom? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question to purchase the Little's John Deere ATV. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Moving to considering stormwater agreement for 614 Beaumont Circle.
Madam Chair, I would move under recommendation from the staff that the board authorize the chair to sign the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement for the home improvements proposed for the Cooper project at 614 Beaumont Circle.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Mike. And Mark, can you come up and speak to this, just so we have a better understanding of this little project, please? Because I thought that maybe you could explain that to us.
Sure, so the Coopers are building an addition and deck and a patio, replacing existing, but there is some increase in stormwater, some increase in impervious coverage, which requires stormwater management, as you see in the plan. So it requires a operation maintenance plan.
How much of an increase in the impervious surface?
I believe plan indicates 1,000 square feet of new impervious. Something like that.
What's the threshold, Mark, for these agreements? Is it 500?
It's 500.
That's the threshold where it kicks in these agreements.
Anything below that is a simplified approach and it doesn't require
An amendment or a structure.
stormwater agreement for over 500.
But it still requires them to do
Oh, it still
Stormwater.
does, stormwater management, got you, but not an agreement.
It's not an agreement.
What are they gonna do?
Building an addition, a new deck and a new patio. There's patio and deck there today that'll come off the new addition.
I'm just curious. This is fine, but how much is it gonna cost to do the stormwater adjustment?
Good question.
What do you know?
About,
Stormwater management
Yeah.
facility.
Decent amount.
I don't know. I don't have all that information in front of me, but I would imagine they run in the realm of $2,000 to $3,000.
okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
I think that I'd like to have an idea of how much some of those stormwater management projects will cost moving forward as well, just because it,
A lot of
it can, we have a lot of them that come through, and I think that it's important for us to be mindful of how much it's costing our residents and
A lot of these things aren't costed out for the staff to have
Okay.
purview to.
okay,
There's probably a total cost that's provided for the building permit,
okay,
but there's no requirement.
that is a breakout, that is a breakout, okay, that's fine.
I think, but I
Okay,
think
that's
there's a
fine.
number I can use when I see a total cost. Because there's a number, and I can't recall off the top of my head, but taking so many stormwater seminars, there's a certain percentage of what it costs now to sort of implement stormwater outside of the simplified approach. So I feel like I can gather that information pretty quickly.
We
if I
want to
know the
thank
total
you
cost.
for taking those seminars that we don't have to.
I'll second.
You know,
I'm just
there-
saying to simplify for Mark. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's
I
fine.
can,
When
That's
these,
something-
when these permits came into play, which now goes back 15, 20 years now. Okay, a lot of,
We're adopting the word. when the second,
okay, a lot of controversy with them because all of a sudden this was a new expense that homeowners had. And I remember we put in a pool. We didn't have to put in an amendment, and we have a stone pit next to the pool that I don't know what it does. But and at the time it was about $2,400 to put that in. Now that goes back
lot of
18
money.
years or so.
Yeah.
And so it created a lot of consternation from homeowners who already had budgets for things, and then they were just learning to say, oh no, we've got to do that now. It created, and it's improved over time because it's been built into the process and people's thinking and from contractors and everyone else. But it's an expense, and it can be very expensive depending if by chance there's a lot of impervious surface and they actually have to put a basin on their property.
And the
Yeah.
thing is, there's a lot of engineering cost involved in it. as well.
Absolutely.
It's something that's unexpected. So thank you, Mark, for the explanation.
Hired an engineer to do the site
Yeah.
And stormwater design did not have to, because we have an off-the-shelf method,
Mhm.
but they decided because of the uniqueness of the shape of the
Okay.
property,
Mhm.
and they decided to do it that way.
That's probably smart.
But yeah, it's come a long way. We were mandated in 2003.
Yeah, that was it. It was a mandate.
Because the Ridley Crum had a watershed plan, and we had to implement.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but then in 2013.
167.
The Chester Creek.
That's right.
That was Act 167.
In 167, that's right.
Okay, David, do you have any questions?
I don't. I can tell you when I put my addition on the back of my house, almost 10 years ago, my stormwater management pit was close to $4,000.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
there's a question from, anybody here in the audience now? Dan?
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm unmuted. Okay, great. So my question, and it probably goes to Derek, probably has the most knowledge on this. Is there any kind of, is there anything in
Wait a
the,
minute, state the name,
State
state the
the name.
name,
oh,
sir.
yeah, Dan Truitt, 1430 Grand Oak Lane. If I could turn my camera on, I would, but, oh, here we go. Yeah, so
Oh,
the
Dan.
question is for Derek. And maybe Michael knows the answer to this question too. Do these ordinances or does the state law have any provisions in it so that you don't have, let's say you're gonna put up a 500 square foot shed in the dead center of your property, and there's no chance that the stormwater from that is gonna leave the boundaries of your property. Do we have any options for making our ordinance more flexible related to the distance that a new object is going to be from the perimeter of the property? And fundamentally, the goal is you want to keep your storm water on your property. And
Unfortunately, Dan, my recollection, and the professionals will correct me, but it is kind of impervious surface is what it is. And if there's a threshold for what it is, and each of the municipalities adopted the county ordinance for 167.
167.
But it is not, it is kind of blind. It is based purely on impervious surface. Am I
The township
Correct?
Had an opportunity when we did it to set a threshold. where
Yes.
no stormwater was required up to a certain
yes,
institution is the conscious decision, to make it 10 square feet. Even 10 square feet, you're required to manage volume of stormwater from that new impervious.
for some reason, we can't hear Mark out in Zoom world. Thanks, Mark.
There is an option that the municipality had to set a threshold. East Goshen decided to leave it at 10 square feet, so all new impervious basically would be required to be managed on the lot. A lot of municipalities in the Westchester area did set a threshold of 500,
Yeah.
1,000,
Yeah.
something like that.
that's what I thought we had.
But East Goshen did not.
Huh.
We will have another opportunity. The stormwater ordinance is coming again.
Yep.
Act 167 is being revised now. There'll be a new model ordinance from the county. And we'll be working on that shortly. I'm going to a session next Monday in the county. The Water Resources Authority has drafted a draft. It doesn't get any less stringent. It's getting more stringent.
But I was gonna say that the square footage is definitely not totally up to us. So it's up to a certain extent, but I think it cuts off somewhere. I'm not remembering exactly where
250.
it has to,
Was it 500?
yeah,
I
it
was
has
saying-
to be managed.
So Bill and I-
10 square feet, it seems like it's very small.
It is small. It's small.
It's very, very
I would
stringent.
want to align it with what the county.
Dan, I would say the one thing I know of too, the one thing I do know of that any kind of relief, so to speak, is credit systems. I mean, that's not just Commonwealth wide, there's nationwide where, if you do something, if you implement some kind of BMP above and beyond what you're supposed to, whether it be green roof, that's pretty big out west in certain areas. Rain barrels, some things of that nature. I know Lake Tahoe actually has something on their website, I think, where you can play around with BMPs and it'll kind of calculate what credit you can get from your stormwater fee. So there's financial relief in specific points if you're a little bit motivated and go above and beyond. But as Mark said, it is I have to admit, 10 square feet is a pretty low threshold. But I guess that's what the township at the time did.
I think, Dan, I'm glad you brought this up because I had no idea that it was that low for the township. And that's when I said 500 square feet. I was thinking that was applicable here. But that's specifically to the O&M maintenance agreements, not necessarily the installation of a facility. I think that's worth taking a look at when the new ordinance comes up through the county to see whether or not we want to give that a fresh look. We all want to be environmentally sensitive, but I don't think we may be the only municipality in the county that has it. Bill, yes?
Potentially.
Yeah, I've not ever heard of it. So I'm glad you brought it up, Dan, because that's a revelation to me. And I think it's worthy of a review when the time is proper later on this year or next year.
Yeah, I knew about the 10 square feet because we did a small porch on the back of our house about 2 years ago, and I came awfully close to covering 10 square feet, but it was literally up against the back of our house.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
The stormwater that was going to land in that 9 square feet was not going to go all the way to a neighbor's property or out to the street or anything else because it was pinned between our house and a swimming pool and a garage. It can't go in.
Yeah.
And
Dan, I'll be over to measure tomorrow.
yeah, but it's
But Dan, imagine what my consternation was when I was told I had to put in for a pool,
for a swimming
had to
pool.
put in a basin
Yeah.
when the impervious surface was covered with water to begin with and was able to absorb water. I mean, I think I've seen the pool overflow maybe once. So,
Right.
so it's kind of, again, as my recollection is, I stated, it's kind of rigid and
Yeah.
it's a bit
To
blind.
that specific question, Mike was correct when we started this conversation. It doesn't matter where the doesn't matter where the water goes.
It's
Impervious
just-
surface is impervious surface
Yeah.
to the law.
Yeah.
That's,
In Mike's situation,
If you could, if an opportunity comes up to revisit that, I think that would be good, because as you point, as David points out, that's a significant cost to our
Okay.
residents. And it can be something that discourages them from making improvements on their property, which increases their property values, which eventually
Yeah.
increases revenues.
That's a good point. A very good point. Well, you've certainly opened the door for discussion, Dan. Dan, you've opened the door for discussion. I think that's really valuable. So thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you.
Perhaps moving forward, Bill, we can,
Kind of put a marker in this
we
for
we might
consideration.
consider discussing that further. If there are no further discussion from the board or questions, I'm going to go ahead and call question. Those in favor of supporting the stormwater O&M.
Aye.
Yep, thank you. Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Let's
No.
see, consider request from the Pipeline Task Force to submit comments to the PUC. Now, this is a little bit more complicated than just simply what we have in front of us. David, did you receive this addendum?
I don't think
Did
he's
David
seen it.
receive the
I
addendum?
emailed this as well.
Okay.
I got it yesterday. so
I will say as one supervisor, I'm supportive of the Pipeline Task Force work on this. And these are the comments to submit. I'm all.
I did see the document and read it yesterday. And those are points that we've been talking about for quite a while on the Pipeline Task Force. And I endorse sending them to PUC.
So just one clarification for the motion. I seem to be making a lot of mistakes with motions in this packet, but for the motion, it is not technically coming from the Pipeline Task Force. It is coming from us, the Board of, you guys, the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to make that motion because I think the motion reads as the Pipeline Task Force is sending the comments when it is in fact the Board of Supervisors. Thank
So
you.
it's under recommendation, of course.
Yes.
No, I think it says that we allow the Eats Goshen.
See, it was just an off week.
Yeah, it does say Pipeline Task Force. So I would entertain the correct motion.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I move we allow the East Goshen Board of Supervisors to submit comments to the PA Public Utility Commission on the updated version of proposed rulemaking order regarding hazardous liquid public utility safety standards.
Second motion.
Thank you. That was a mouthful.
That's your boss.
And
of
I
work went
echo
into this. I
David's
appreciate it.
comments and Mike's comments as well. We appreciate the Pipeline Task Force for staying on this and giving us a lot to think about, that's for sure.
And it'll be interesting to see if some of these ruminate with the PUC. They're
So-
well thought out.
Yep.
You notice there was a reference to the Texas Railroad Authority. And so some of these recommendations were taken from a document that was created by the Railroad Authority. And they actually have the authority in Texas for regulating and locating, by the way, siting pipelines.
Yep.
And the reason for that was a horrendous accident in Texas, which was a rail car accident that killed, I think, like 47 people. And so the Texas Railroad Authority got the role of examining basically all oil and gas safety issues. So it was used as a source document for some of this. And so these are regulations that exist in other states, including an oil and gas friendly state of Texas. So I appreciate and applaud the Pipeline Task Force work on this.
Yep.
Absolutely. And if there are no board questions regarding these comments, I would ask if there's anybody in the audience that has any questions. Please come on up and give us your input. Thank you.
Pipeline Task Force.
Can you speak directly into the microphone?
Sure.
We'll bring it up to you. There you go. Thank you. Thanks,
Really
Shirley.
got spinning.
Yeah, you really do.
Okay, I'm glad that you're all in favor of this, and I just wanted to make sure that well, the reason I came was make sure if there were any questions, I would address them. We are against kind of a tight thought. So Derek, if you could be able to make that.
Yeah, I mean, we have the comments, so
Right.
I
Submit them tomorrow.
I could submit them tomorrow, yeah.
Right, but it's not exactly the way that they did it before. There's a procedure that you have to follow, and the procedure is described in the document.
Okay. I'll take a look at it tomorrow and I'll get it right on
If you have
it.
any questions,
Yeah, I'll give you a buzz.
I can show you where.
Okay.
Well, that would be good to, if necessary, Jerry, to, if Derek, because if time is of the essence and there's
It's Friday,
something-
right? Friday?
Well, I set an internal deadline
Okay.
this Friday because I wanted to have a little.
Little, yeah,
Because next week is a busy week, there's a lot of religious holidays.
Yes.
I want to get this knocked out this Friday.
Sure.
smart.
So it's good that there's no comments on the technical content. Now it's just the administrative work.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll touch base and yeah.
right. Like in that email that I sent just to you, I pointed you right to where it is. It's under by the order of, it's item number 5.
Okay.
I think you have to go into their website, create an account, and probably upload a PDF.
Okay. That's the PUC account? Yeah, I think we have, we have an internal account. with
Oh, you
PUC.
already have that?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. I know what it's like. Agencies.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a little,
Yeah.
you think it's straightforward and then
Yeah.
you're stuck on some stupid little thing.
You know, giving public comment to some of these public agencies is almost as difficult as taking your money out of the bank. I'm just saying, because I had to do it earlier this week and it was kind of like,
We
wait a
still
minute.
use money? Actual physical
Yeah,
money?
so I get it. And so it's a process just to get public comment.
And the reason I'm being kind of, pain about this is I do think it's important. So I'm really glad you support this.
Yeah.
A lot of effort has gone into
Yeah.
it. And I wanted to make sure that we hit it right on the head there. So I really want the PUC to see this. And also, this is just my opinion, I do not think we're alone here. I think they will be receiving a lot of comments from other organizations.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, Jerry, particularly from many of the municipalities that have been afflicted by this, whether it's the Whitelands, the Euclids, the Goshens, both Goshens. I hope that they all submit comments, let alone further down the pipeline, if you will. So I'm curious to
Derek, do
do.
you mind just letting Mr. Sexton and the rest of the pipeline task force know when those are submitted then?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
You'll get a confirmation probably that they've been accepted, I guess, right? From through the agency.
Well, I could screenshot it.
Let's,
Well, I've never submitted something to the PUC in this
Yeah,
context.
hopefully
so-
they have an acknowledgement screen that
I'm
says
hoping,
it's been
yeah.
accepted.
Hopefully.
under the old system, yeah, you would get an acknowledgement because the document that you have shows accepted by the PUC in a certain date. I don't know how they do that now with this only electronic submission. I think before what Rick did was he literally just mailed them a letter.
Yeah.
In the post.
Yeah.
And then, when you got an acknowledgement, they received it. So I
Okay.
just want to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say that I agree that there will be more comments this time, and I think that the difference is, I think that the pipeline task force is always a little bit more succinct and a little bit more ahead of a lot of our neighbors. So we appreciate all of the efforts that you spent on that. Thank you.
Jerry, just one question. Was there any kind of sharing or communication with any of the other municipalities that have interest groups like the pipeline task force?
Not
Just,
formally,
yeah,
but in my review of
and I didn't read every single comment. There were 92 other entities that commented. I looked at some. And I just, well, that looks familiar, that looks. familiar.
Okay,
So we, as I mentioned in my email to Barrett, we weren't unique or alone in our concerns. A lot of other people
okay, good.
had similar comments.
Because clearly they will have an administrator tabulate those and say, well, this is one that came up, I think, who knows how that they will settle them out, but that's great to see that there were further echoes down the road from others.
And they did say in the preface to their, the new regulations that they did duly consider all comments.
Yeah.
Which is,
Sure.
we recognize
That's
it, it
Sure.
didn't necessarily
Yeah.
address them.
Yeah.
And that's the crux of that, 2-page memo that I have there. Here's what you didn't address that we think is important.
Yeah. Duly considered is kind of like, oh, nice to see you, thank you.
Thanks for submitting.
Yeah, we read it, but they don't offer really much
Any feedback?
explanation
No.
to comments that were not addressed in the latest revision of the document.
Okay, hold on one second, Jerry. Are there any, Mark, you don't have any questions for Jerry, do you? Are there any questions on our Zoom platform or David?
I have
No?
none.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Seeing no
Jerry,
questions,
thank you.
then I'm going to call the question for the pipeline task force.
Thank the
comments to
members
be
of the task
submitted
force.
As the Board of Supervisors comments.
Hi.
Aye,
Hi.
Aye.
thank you very much. Okay, standing issues and projects. Derek, do you want to take a minute or two to update us a little bit?
Sure, Madam Chair. So essentially not too much of an update since we last met with the Milltown Dam, residents in that area. For Milltown Dam, we did get in touch with Diane Heron, the state representative, who reached out on our behalf to DEP, Division of Dam Safety. It was fairly successful in that we got a response from Dam Safety. So they acknowledged that we submitted everything that needed to be submitted and that our permit should be, here in short order. They didn't give specifics, but I guess it's better. And this was, by the way, from the division head himself. So I guess that's a good thing. It's to their attention. So still waiting on the permit for Milltown Dam project. The only thing I will add from the time the residents were here last time that we did not discuss that night. We do have to, as we said that night, we do have to, as soon as we get this permit, we'll get the bid documents turned around in order to go out for bid. The problem is we have grants tied to this project
They all
that
have to sign on.
they have to review these bid documents before they even go out to contractors. So that's going to add a little bit of time, and we did not fully discuss that night. But again, because of the grants, the large amount of grants, that's going to be a process we have to go through.
What's the timeline on how quick they need to review the proposal or the grants or whatever needs to go to the next step?
Oh, you mean the grantees, the grantors, how long
Yeah.
they have to review the comments?
They don't give specifics. So when we get our permit and we hand them the bid documents, you're asking how long from that time that we get it back? I mean, it could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I have no idea. I'd have to ask them if they can give me specific. I've never gotten specific timeframes from a
I don't
state
think
department.
I don't think they have a
so-
statuted
All right,
requirement.
I didn't know if they like limited.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's not
Probably
like
internal
it's not like a
operation.
public comment period where they give you 60
Yeah.
days. No. Yeah.
But I'm gonna actually say that we've done considerably more than that. The next day, I had been in contact with one of the residents and we discussed some of the specific issues that they were experiencing over there and subsequently followed up with the chief of police and Public Works. Public Works got over there right away and got so much of the debris that was concerning them out of the way.
The barricades.
The
The barricades are now
barricade.
up. That was huge to block the part of the 2 parking spots there. It's inconvenient for people who were there for legit reasons, but there were some illegitimate reasons that we needed to put those
One
those
rotten
barriers.
apple sometimes
One rotten
spoils
apple will
things.
do it every time. And so the barriers are up. My understanding is at this point, we do have operational cameras in various locations to monitor the comings and goings of people in that area. We haven't heard anything, I haven't heard anything else, but I've been out of touch for a week.
I was wondering,
So-
from any of the residents, did we hear of who were expressed concerns, which we appreciated? Have we heard back from any of them to say, yeah, we saw people were over there, keep it
Yeah.
up,
Yeah, actually,
appreciated, anything like that?
yeah, actually Derek and Mark Miller and I went over, we spoke with Mr. D'Antonio,
Oh, okay.
and that's right, wasn't it?
He's the one that overlooks the
Overlooks,
parking
yeah,
lot.
he overlooks the parking. And he was appreciative of Mark's efforts and the team's efforts at the cleanup, and the explanation that we gave him of our understanding of what some of the illicit behavior was, where it was coming from. And he did express appreciation that
Good.
we actually did something. Their next concern is the mosquitoes, so that's going to be a coming attraction, unfortunately. So we're looking into methods of how to mitigate that.
Can I just make a quick comment? I want to thank Michelle and Derek, Public Works team, whoever went down there, took care of everything so quickly, and also want to thank our police force for stepping up that area of surveillance. I think it's nice to see government working quickly and efficiently.
Yep, yeah, good point, Cody. Good comment.
I think, and we were trying to, working on getting rid of the beavers and the dam that are clogging
Oh,
up
the
the water
beavers.
as well. So,
And there's two of them. There's two beavers.
Yep.
So trapping.
yeah, they're causing some issues with the water flow there, so working on that. And then, Madam Chair, the other ongoing dam project, Hershey's Mill Dam, it's actually been moving quite a lot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of progress.
I drive by there every morning, and this morning, I think it looked like they were going to build the Empire State Building. There was a lot of people
A
there.
lot of activity there, I saw it too.
So, yeah,
We're
so
starting to plant.
a lot of good progress. I think the big thing that we still have to do there is the boardwalk. But if I had to, I think I said this at the previous meeting, but if I had to ballpark when that will be done, and I'm hoping by the end of the summer that'll be wrapped up. So that's progressing nicely, and I don't have anything really from a negative perspective to report on that one.
Yeah, there was a lot of activity there. They're working on the parking lot.
Great.
They built the whole kind of rock wall along the edge of the parking lot as a retaining wall. Mark Miller told me today that he really thinks that much of it will be done by the end of June, including the boardwalk. And they've just had this back and forth about the manner of the pillars, the pylons that go in. And Mark is kind of up to here with it, but he's communicating with these guys on a
So there
regular
were
basis.
3 options that we went over, and we finally settled on one. That there was 3 parties involved, so the engineer, us,
Yeah,
and the contractor, and it was tough to make everybody happy. But we finally settled on these helical screws. They're sort of like gigantic screws that go into
go into the
yeah.
concrete.
So we feel good about the stability there and then holding up. So we hope that it can get started pretty quickly.
All right. And
Yeah.
and
Okay.
great. And then under any other matter, I'm just going to bring up a couple of things that are coming up. I know there's the Easter egg hunt on April the 9th, which is this Saturday. That is courtesy of our amazing Park and Rec director. April the 13th, we're going out to Harrisburg, small team of people going out to Harrisburg to receive an award from the governor for the young filmmakers showcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be on Wednesday afternoon or morning rather. And then on April the 23rd is Keep East Goshen Beautiful Day. Please come out.
Yes.
Let Derek know that or Amanda know that you're willing to come out and have a team of people come out to clean up some roadways. April the 24th is the Sustainability Advisory Committee's first expo. So this is going to be a lot of fun. They're expecting a lot of vendors to come in and show some of the things that they do that can really help the environment. And then lastly, under my, at least any other matters, would be the Township Yard Sale, which is April the 30th. And hopefully people will participate in that. Does anybody else have anything under any other matter? Mark Gordon does. David, do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay, Mark Gordon, come on up. For Zoom land and posterity. This can be recorded for all time.
Right, so just under keep the discussion beautiful day, that's also Arbor Day, as
Yes.
it's going to be understood by the solution that falls right with our keep the discussion beautiful day. We have not heard back from the Arbor Day committee, determine if we've been selected, but we should move forward just like we are anyway. That way, you know, we plant a tree. Michelle, you can dig a hole. And
Oh, great.
be right there.
Maybe John could do
Get your
it.
picture taken.
Oh, that's what I need.
So,
Have Cody do it.
we're gonna try and get a tree and
Great.
down in the Climbers Woods, they have one.
Okay.
that kind of fell over there, so we're gonna replace it there.
Good.
That'll be a good picture opportunity.
We do need to have an annual Arbor Day
Yep.
event.
There's a whole thing you have to
So-
recite and take pictures and.
Okay.
Plant a tree.
All
Okay,
right,
good.
great.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. All right. Do we have any public comments from the one public left here in the room or on Zoom? Any supervisors with anything? Liaison reports? Correspondence, reports of interest? We have received a number of emails from Joe Bonanno, and those will be entered into the record. I got an email this past week from a woman who was just so appreciative of Mark Miller's efforts. She's on Allison Drive. She appreciated the fact that we came out so quickly to attend to a tree issue. And Mark continues to regale us with all the public works projects. So, yeah. Cody, anything?
Madam Chair, I would happily like to make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Those in favor?
No.
See you, David. See you, David.
care.
David, be
Thank
good.
you.
Ride safely.
John, look at this.
Will do.
All right. Can't wait to hear some stories.
Okay, I got some.
Oh, I know you do.
How long
I'll
does it
see you,
take?
Connor.
Go all the way up to here.
Dave, I have a question for you.
Thanks, Derek.